Okay, alright, we're good. We're on the YouTubes, Dave.
Oh, hey guys, I'm just setting up the Facebook Live. I'm gonna go live. Alright.
There we go.
Alright.
Perfect.
Slide this over just a wee bit. Okay. Alright, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Dr. D's Discussions. I'm here with my co-host, Nate.
What's up, Dave?
How are you?
Good, man.
Hey, I'm pumped. Tonight is going to be one hell of a show.
It's going to be a fun one.
It's our election special. I wanted to make sure that we did this a little bit before.
Oh, it's
our,
Connections Week.
Yeah, it's going to be a little weak. It is what it is. We're going to have to just deal with the live stream. But we're going to have to deal with our weak connection because of the rain. So apologize for that. But tonight is our election special, so we will be giving you our most unbiased, nonpartisan type of assessment of all 5 candidates. I guarantee you didn't even know there was a 5th candidate.
I didn't until about a week ago.
Yeah, his name is Evan McMullin. He's a pure independent candidate. He's running mainly out of Utah. He actually might throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into Donald Trump's or the Republican stranglehold that is clearly on Utah for the past, I would say, 60 years plus. But today we're going to go through, in this order, we're going to watch, we're going to go through Jill Stein first. We're going to give our analysis of her. We're going to also go into Gary Johnson, will be our second candidate we assess. We're going to talk about Evan McMullin third. And I know that's not necessarily in line with the
how popular he is.
Popular nationally he is, but he is very, very popular in Utah. And we really think that he has a good shot. I honestly have seen the Politico polling, the poll of polls, the average, CNN ROC, different political commentators. I'm a big fan of the Young Turks, big plug there. But they actually think he's got a good shot of winning Utah, and therefore taking away electoral college votes that would normally be 100% in the Republican favor. So that might have a little bit of a spoiler in terms of his running this election. And we'll go into Trump after that because that'll be a good segue, and then we'll finish up with Miss Secretary Clinton and.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And if you guys have comments, definitely throw it in the Facebook Live chat or hit us up on the YouTube video afterwards. Definitely want this to be interactive. So any questions, if you think we're saying something wrong, if you think we're speaking some bullshit, definitely call us out on it.
Yeah, please. And definitely, if you have specific questions about the candidates, I will try my best with the notes that we have to give you the best analysis that we can. But we don't want to give you an impartiality. So I'm going to start off and say that I do have some inherent biases. I'm more left-leaning in terms of a very social types of policies. I'm also a little bit more conservative in terms of spending. So it's kind of a terrible thing to have together. But you know, it's always good for debate, and I'd hope that, you know, if you, like Nate said, if you have some questions or comments or you want to call out some BS, feel free, please.
And I'm pretty liberal about mostly everything. I'm pretty progressive. Biggest thing that I'm going to be talking about is cybersecurity and bringing things to the table digitally. There's like a lot of things that I think we're going to get into later. This should be fun.
Yeah, I love talking about the cybers. All right. Well, let's start off with Jill Stein. She's the Green Party candidate, as most people have heard about her. She's a Harvard-trained medical doctor, so she has her MD. I believe she practiced internal medicine, which is the hardest, in my personal opinion. Not knocking any doctors out there who are in OBG or in different types of fields, but I believe that's the most difficult in terms of actual practice of medicine. So, her political career, she got into the race this time around. Her running mate is, I'm blanking on his name, Harak. African-American gentleman. He's a big civil rights proponent, and he's very well-versed in terms of...
Good, Dave?
Yep, just want to make sure that you're in the frame. Well-versed in terms of societal issues. Let me start off with some of the cons for Jill Stein, and then we'll go to the pros. And we'll do that in this format for the rest of the candidates as well.
And we're just going to throw all of our sources for everything we're doing in the Facebook video. Most of the information comes straight from the candidate's website, so just the link to the website.
of course. And we'll throw all the links up for the individual candidates, as Nate said at the end. I'll also throw up some videos that I find very informative about the Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump campaigns from the Young Turks. As I said, I'm a big fan. So basically, let's go into some of the cons that she has. My assessment of her economic and social issues and the way that she has a take on different things is that she's really pie in the sky in terms of, all about getting the environment healthy. Obviously I want good drinking water.
Yeah.
I want the EPA to be at its maximum efficiency. However, her transition from fossil fuels to just pure green energy in 10 years, actually by 2030, is the way that she's really trying to push. I think it's a little unrealistic. I think you need a more well-rounded approach to getting from our technical spot where we're at now in terms of fossil fuel reliance to green energy reliance. And in the next 10 to 15 years, we will have that capability to actually do, solar panels everywhere, on houses and different things like that.
I don't think we'll be able to solve that problem in 10 years, though.
Exactly.
I think that's a little too unrealistic.
And that's generally in her platform, is that she wants to have all renewable energies by 2030, which most likely is not going to happen, especially given the political climate that Congress is in deadlock for, the past 8, 10, 12 years now, where,
they don't even want to have Congress anymore. They're just going on break all the time.
John McCain and, Ted Cruz just came out this week saying they want to stonewall any type of Supreme Court nomination that Hillary Clinton would throw up if she were to win. So that automatically gives me credence to my argument that Jill Stein's pie in the sky isn't going to go well with Congress. So,
and Dave, you went to a rally, like a couple months ago for Jill Stein, right?
Yeah, actually, when the DNC was in Philadelphia, I did attend a rally for Jill Stein, and I liked her. I like her policies. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I really do appreciate taking care and being stewards of the earth and whatnot. However, like I said, economically, she's not well versed. She didn't know how to explain quantitative easing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be the most well-versed in quantitative easing, but I actually know that it's a very good monetary policy. It's actually forming a big bond bubble, in my opinion. So I don't necessarily believe that it's the best policy, because we're only kicking the can down the road from the financial crisis that we were in.
Sure.
But I did like her. She's a big Black Lives Matter supporter. She's a big social justice warrior, so to speak. But there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm a huge proponent of Black Lives Matter, and you know what? I don't care. You can shove it.
Yeah.
I agree. Like I said, a lot of policies in theory, but in practice, that's kind of where she loses me. I don't think she has concrete ideas about how to lay out the future for her ideas.
And I think one thing you got to think about too is most people consider the Green Party really out there.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this race of between how much everyone hates Hillary and how much hates Trump, no one's even really thinking about going to a third party.
Yeah,
definitely part of the problem, right? I think that's all something that we all realize this time around. Is when you're stuck with two really bad choices, what are you going to do? But at the same time, no one goes for a third party that's so much into something that's against American, basically, culture. I mean, you basically have to change your entire mindset to
I agree.
Go to environmentally friendly first,
I agree. And the only thing that I would say against that is that if you do poll in the national election at 5% of the popular vote, you do get federal funding and can actually be recognized as a national party. So that's what they're really fighting for in the Green Party, is to get that 5% threshold so they actually get federal funding. But some of her pros that I wanted to bring up with you, her college debt forgiveness is a complete, I want to say, it harkens to TARP, the bailout of the banks, where we gave $800 billion, and then quantitative easing, we gave $4 trillion there to banks to bail them out, and what really good has that done to our economy? I don't believe that you can just completely wipe out college debt. That's pie in the sky again. However, I do believe that it's a good starting block for conversation and in terms of maybe compromise. Not necessarily, let's not erase everyone's debt, but maybe get us to a point where we can have a debt forgiveness program somewhere along the lines.
Sure.
Similar to what the United Kingdom has. You pay for 10, 15, 20 years, and then whatever's left, the government eats. Instead of making money off of the students like you and I, at 6.8, 7% interest. Obviously I understand the economics behind giving loans to people who don't really have credit, so I understand why there's such a high interest rate. So I get that, but at the same time, does it make it ethical and morally correct? I don't believe so, but at the same time, we can have a good conversation about maybe reallocating some funds and different things to bettering our nation as a whole. And we'll get more into that.
I mean, we
as
could
move
also
through
get into
clients.
the discussion of whether or not colleges are even working as a whole right now. I mean,
Exactly.
kids are getting 4-year degrees, $200,000 in debt, and then they go and they can't even, work in the field that they want to work
Exactly.
in.
And like,
Underemployment, pretty
Yeah.
much, or part-time jobs.
and there's nothing wrong with being employed and doing your passion on the side. Like I don't really like a lot of the things. I like a lot of things Mike Rose says, and I disagree with him on a lot of things. But he's a very strong proponent for getting a technical job and then doing your art and passion on the side. There's nothing wrong with being a particular what's it called? A particular crap, I lost my place.
Sorry, we'll come back.
Yeah, my dad texted in the middle of the show. But Jill Stein wants to put education experts in charge of Department of Education. She wants to also put scientists in charge of the FDA and the EPA, rather than having the corporate hold of like the lobbyists. We don't want lobbyists and lawyers taking control of those.
Sounds like that would
positions.
probably make the most sense, right?
Right?
Yeah,
You think like
those, yeah.
Yeah, or have the best person involved with the Chamber of Commerce. Somebody that has a forward-thinking idea about, let's invest in different things and get the maximum amount for the American people, rather than just giving it all to the top.
Sure.
She wants to protect public lands, and this is going to come up again and again. She protested the Dakota pipeline with the natives. She actually chained herself to a bulldozer. So
She's a badass.
She's a badass woman.
Yeah.
So I give her a lot of credit where credit is due, and I love you too, Anthony. So I give her a lot of credit in terms of standing by her principles. She's a very principled woman, and other than her pie in the sky, she's a principled woman. So I like a lot of the ideas that I wish some of the other candidates who are a little bit more in the bigger parties would heed her kind of ideas about putting the smartest person, the most qualified person in charge of departments of the executive branch.
Sure.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah,
Ready to move
so
on?
that's Jill Stein. So we'll throw her paper to the side. Now we'll talk a little bit about the Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson. As you know, I was feeling the Johnson at the beginning of this general election cycle.
I think a lot of us were. He
and,
was a very viable third party, kind of came out of nowhere. He seemed very relatable, was an athlete, said a lot of good things, got some sound bites, and, some people started to pay attention to him as the race started to go from July to August, before the debates.
Yeah, and I think in the month of October, he really kind of collapsed. And that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I know a lot of the questions that the mainstream media gave him were gotcha questions and Aleppo and this, that. But off the top of my head, I can name 12 foreign leaders, whether I like them or not.
Yeah.
You should be able to name foreign leaders that you're going to have to work with. Like, when I ask, my dad asked me, name some foreign leaders. I was like, I love Justin Trudeau in Canada, the Prime Minister. I don't really like Angela Merkel, but I like how she's a very staunch,
Germany, right?
She's really good for the German people. I don't like David Cameron, but, he's there. Theresa May, the new conservative Prime Minister of United Kingdom, and Erdogan, the Prime Minister or the President of Turkey. I hate him. He's a terrible person.
He is.
Putin. You can name foreign leaders. So the guy is a little misinformed, and that's kind of like my con. He's horribly misinformed about global and economic policies, and in terms of how to solve a lot of our ills in the Middle East. He just wants to pull out completely, and I get that, but at the same time, he's non-interventionist, and I really support that. However, there are some times where you need to flex the muscle and keep our interests at the forefront for in particular. Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to Clinton. That's why we're saving her for last, Anthony. Don't you worry. But in terms of his tax plan, it's completely unreasonable. You're going to go from a no income tax, get rid of all income tax, get rid of the corporate tax, and go for a consumption tax, when that inherently will put the burden on people who buy the most. And that's the middle class. Middle class people are going to go out and buy a car. They're going to go out and buy jeans, and they're going to go buy a computer, and they're going to buy cell phones, and disproportionately, that's the largest chunk of people in the population. So you want the burden to be shifted from corporate America back to the average Joe. And I like libertarian ideals, but there's certain libertarian. I'm more of a centrist when I say I'm a libertarian, where I like the roads. The roads need to be built. Bridges need to be built, so economic progress can occur. Now
he's running with Weld, right?
And he's running with Weld. I really honestly think Weld at the top of the ticket would have been much better, because the way that Gary Johnson, I'll throw up a couple videos from the Young Turks that in an interview, he just like freaked out on a reporter from I believe the Guardian or the Intercept, and just went ugh, and like kind of head faked him out. And the reporter's face was just like, whoa, man, like, yo, take it down a notch, and I kind of see Gary Johnson as folding under the pressure. He could have been somebody, and could have been, a viable candidate, a third-party option. I really do like his social stances where he's all about personal freedoms. He's about legalizing weed, ending the war on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
He's socially accepting. He's not necessarily agrees with abortion, but he's pro-choice. He's pro-freedoms and liberties, like I said.
He has a pretty good track record in the state of New Mexico, too.
Yeah, didn't raise any taxes,
No.
actually went left with a budget surplus, actually paved new roads, new bridges. He had a very good record. And Bill Weldon, in Massachusetts, had a phenomenal record. He had the most, progressive in terms of societal, policies, but at the most, balanced the budget. Increased economic prosperity for the state of Massachusetts. Went from one of the worst in terms of schools to one of the best in terms of education. Went from one of the worst unemployment rates to one of the best.
Yep.
And albeit it was during the economic expansion of the 90s when, the internet came to be. We had dot-coms and the largest economic expansion since World War II. And I get that, and he was a benefit to that, but he, had some good policies in place. And honestly, if it had been Bill Weld at the top of the ticket, I honestly think they would have had a much more viable shot.
Well, I mean, you also have to deal with the fact that they couldn't even get into debates, right?
Yeah.
And then every time that he did have a soundbite over the last month, it was like a huge foot in the mouth comment, And then people just kind of fell off, All it really took, at least for me, and then the people that I talked to, it took probably one or two bad interviews, and everyone was like, "Oh, well, this guy's an idiot." Yeah, and it's hard to get back from that connotation. Yeah, when A, most people don't know who you are, and B, you got all these crazy people like Trump and Clinton doing all this other stuff that's going on that's taking a larger percentage of your time. So.
Exactly, and I also disagree. In 1988, there was actually the Daughters of Liberty ran all of the debates, a third-party organization that was non-NGO, it was non-profit, and they actually did fair debates.
And when was this?
1988. The big corporations and CNN and Time Warner and all those guys got together with the Democrats and the Republicans and said, we're going to host our own debates from now on, so you guys can't ask tough questions to our candidates. And that's the whole crap about the Democratic and Republican parties. They're private-owned entities, and they get federal funding to not include other people because they made the fucking rule so that you have to be at 15% polling nationally. That's crap. Like, I get it, and that's a little Gary Johnson of me to go, but when you see BS, you call the BS out.
I think one comment we got here is his stance on climate change too, which I know as a scientist.
That's right here. He's anti-climate change because he said, and I quote, "The sun is going to burn up the earth in 1 billion years, so, boo-hoo on climate change." Wow. Even if you don't agree with climate change, all you have to do is look at the World Wildlife Foundation's report that 82% of vertebrate populations are declining. We are in a mass extinction event. I don't care if you believe in greenhouse gases or not, or this, that, or the other thing. It's all about other types of climate change, where the Great Barrier Reef is dying off. Oceans are getting warmer. It doesn't care about. I don't care about polar ice caps and all that nonsense. It's us encroaching on in the environment. We're taking habitat away from these animals, and we don't think this is going to come back to bite us in the ass. Mm-hmm. It's gonna. So I want to move on to his immigration policy. I think is the best out of all the candidates because he wanted a visa for everybody who's here illegally, so that they can pay taxes for 4 years, and then at that point in time have a path to citizenship then. And I think that would have been reasonably fair because at that point in time, you can make the argument to the American people after 4 years that these illegal immigrants or whatever, aliens you want to call them, people that work and, bust their ass for a good living, have been paying taxes for 4 years. And they're good people. So, you know what? Why not at that point in time rehash up the argument? I think that was spot on, the best policy.
Well, the other immigration has been at net zero from 2009 to 2014. Opposed to source for that. But this is something that the right has aligned with everything that they promote and everything that they talk about. Is immigration, got to control the borders, got to keep American people safe, blah blah blah. God, country, guns, all that shit.
Yeah.
It's
You're letting your bias
not,
come out.
it is.
Shame
it is,
on
it
you,
is.
Nate. Shame on
Not
you.
that you want to rank things, but I think immigration, when it's at net zero, especially when there is like a lot to be said about being born on this side of the line or that side of the line.
Yeah. Let's put it this way: it's a talking point, and it's a big talking point. So like you can hide behind a talking point, and you don't really have any bite behind it.
Exactly.
Just a couple more things about Gary Johnson. Non-interventionist. I like that about him. He doesn't doesn't like the Libya, doesn't like Syria, doesn't like Iraq. That whole 9 yards, was against it from the get-go. He wouldn't increase taxes. Would rather have more budget cuts than increase of revenue. And I disagree with some things on that. I think that you should have a multi-pronged approach. If you're in the red and you have the ability to bring in more money and at the same time cut your spending, it's kind of common sense. If you're balancing your budget at home, you're not going to just say, oh, I'm going to cut all my spending and I'm not going to try to bring in any more revenue. If you have the ability to take a second job or whatever, you definitely will. He's anti-climate change, like we had said, and he has no real answer. And there's a couple interviews that I watched with him and Bill Weld. Bill Weld tries to answer for him, but the person who's doing the interview won't let Bill Weld answer and goes, hey, how would you get rid of the EPA? How would you get rid of the Department of Education? What would you do? And Gary Johnson's like, well, I would like to wave a magic wand. And I'm sorry, there's no magic wand that you can just wave to just get rid of these things without having some concrete ideas. What would replace them? Or how would you give that to the states?
Mm-hmm.
Would you not give that to the states? Would you, how would you want to get rid of the EPA?
Yeah.
You want to get rid of the EPA? I remember that, I don't personally remember, but the Tioga burned for a few days. A river out in Pittsburgh, that area, burned for days. A body of water burned. And you don't think the EPA is good. So, I'm not for all just regulation, but common sense regulation where we can compromise about different things.
I think that's one thing that we can all agree that we need.
Yeah. He's also for continuing Citizens United ruling and have legal bribery. So, at that point in time, I was like, all right, Gary Johnson.
See you later.
See ya.
Moving on.
All right. So here's our dark horse. I'm surprised that Evan McMullin is polling upwards of 20-some% in Utah.
But that's only the state of Utah, right? Just to clarify.
Just to
state of
clarify,
Utah.
he's not polling above 1 or 2% nationally. In certain hotbeds of really staunch conservatism, he's really polling high. And you know what? I'm not necessarily the strongest conservative, supporter or person that'll go out on a limb and defend him. But at the same time, the Mormons are taking a stand. They're going, no, we don't want to vote for Trump. That guy's not. And all the evangelicals out there that want to vote for Trump or this, that, and the other thing, who are just turning a blind eye to some of the racist and xenophobic and bigoted stuff and the sexist shit and the rapist stuff. It's not sugarcoated. The Mormons are taking a stand, and you know what? I salute them. You know what? I may disagree with people on principle, but if you're a principled person, you stand by your beliefs, come hell or high water, I respect you.
Sure.
I respect that position. So let's take a few things.
Tell us about Evan, Dave.
So he's going to be the monkey wrench to the Republicans, like the certain talking heads like Bill O'Reilly, Lou Dobbs, and all the guys on Fox News and Fox Business News are really pissed off at Evan McMullin because he's a former CIA director, I think a deputy chief, worked in Syria for years and years and years, for a decade, I believe. And he's got the most concrete, coherent plan to put pressure on Russia in terms of foreign policy. So I'll give him credit where credit is due. He wants to cut the deficit and debt, but he doesn't really have a means to do that other than just slashing the budget.
Sure.
His immigration policy is actually more in line with Gary Johnson than anybody else. He actually thinks that if you're working here and you pay taxes, you should have a path to citizenship. And I was like, holy crap, okay, cool, conservative, hardline conservative.
Yeah, definitely probably more of a financial hardline conservative than progressive social.
Yeah, so he wants the tax revenue.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like that. But at the
which
same
makes
time,
sense.
he's a human being. Like how some people pay lip service to their religion. This man follows what he believes.
Sure.
So I give him credit. And shit, this was a big one for me. He wants criminal justice reform that helps everybody, including the plight of African Americans in this country. Blew my mind that a hardline conservative was like, we need to make sure that these people, in terms of we need to get rid of the minimum sentencing, we need to get rid of private prisons, we need to really focus on these different things. And I was like, wow, hardline conservative is, got some pretty good social ideas.
Sure.
He also wants to reduce subsidies for special interests in terms of gas. ExxonMobil, they get trillions and billions, not trillions, but billions of dollars every year to subsidize, their research and development, and they're, going out and looking for new oil mining operations, and different places where they can go. So he wants to get rid of that and put the money back towards the people. However, this is where his list of cons come in, and I just cannot support this man. First and foremost, he wants to overturn Roe v. Wade, and that may be one of your things out there, guys, but it's the law of the land, and I don't want to increase back alley abortions and that whole mess of stuff. So
I feel like we're living in the 60s when people even bring this up anymore.
It's the law of the land for the past 50 years.
Yeah.
It's get over it. I'm sorry. Like, you might come at me for not being, fair to the fetus, child, if you follow that, and I love how a lot of conservatives would go, oh, well, the heart beats at 6 weeks. No. Those are heart precursor cells, not attached to the brain, and the brain isn't even fully developed and folded and whatever. We'll have
Dave. Yeah.
I have a master's in developmental biology, so we'll have an abortion special or some type of developmental science behind it, and we'll go into detail more then. But he wants to gut government with no real plan. He wants to cut the EPA, cut the FDA, cut all this stuff out. No real plan onto what he wants to do.
I don't know why all these guys want to cut all these programs that are like, protecting the American people.
Yeah, I want to eat bad milk.
Yeah.
I want to have E. coli in my
I like
lettuce.
knowing what my food is made out of.
Yeah, he supports TPP. Yeah, he really cares
And Dave,
about
what's
the American worker.
TPP?
The Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Break it down in 3 cents or less.
Okay, foreign policy, it's a means to beat back China's growth and development in the South China Sea and in the Pacific Rim. Second, it's designed for corporations to get more sovereignty over sovereign countries. So that's where I lose it. So say a town in California wants to switch over to all green. A company, say ExxonMobil, can go and sue the hell out of that company or town to bankruptcy just because they're like, oh no, you have to have gas. So that's the kind of thing TPP is hiding in its wings. Really staunch top-down economist, or
trickle down.
Yeah. Sorry if that's a talking point, but clearly trickle-down economics is a set of policies.
They talk about it all the time. All you got to do is watch Fox News. I don't know, for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and at least it'll come up once.
Yeah.
But he's horribly anti-LGBTQ, so he wants to get rid of. He wants to put in these religious freedom laws that, you can't sell a cake to homosexuals or, transgenders or anybody like that.
Does this also affect, people being able to buy, houses and property?
Yes, and, you can actually evict people because they're gay. You can fire them because they're gay. Whatever type of the LGBTQ acronym that you fall under, he doesn't want to protect you at all. He says marriage is law of the land. Can't really overturn that. However, he's going to fight tooth and nail so that people can discriminate against the LGBT community. So that's pretty shitty in my opinion. On top of that, he's a staunch, trickle-down economics guy. So we've seen that not work for the American people for the past 30 years. So, but I'm curious to see what happens with Utah, because if he wins Utah, that's I believe another 4 electoral college votes away from the Republican side. Whatever Utah has, I apologize, I'm blanking on the number.
It's relatively low. Yeah.
It's relatively low. However, that's still more that Trump would have to make up for in terms of winning other states to win the overall election. So, Evan McMullen, he's gone. All right. So now we're going to get into the big two, Trump and Clinton. We're going to do Trump first. Now there's going to be some inherent biases that Nate and I have because we're a little bit more left-leaning, and I'll, obviously you can call us out on some things. But don't worry, I have enough cons for the both of them because, they're both cons in my opinion. All right, so let's start with Trump's pros, let's start with his cons, and then we'll end on his pros.
Sure.
Okay. He was pro-Iraq war. I don't care what he says in his campaign speeches and stumps or whatever. He was on the Howard Stern show and said, yeah, I think I'm for it, I guess, and then a couple other interviews he said that he was for it. This one thing, he hasn't put out his tax returns. So, he's the first presidential candidate since, I believe, 1980 or beyond to not give us his tax returns. And I don't think he's a true billionaire. He might be a billionaire, but he's definitely not worth as much as he says, given all the bankruptcies and the different companies that have fallen through.
Well, he did report a $960 million loss in 1996, which is why he didn't have to provide tax returns for a couple of years, I believe.
Yep.
So whenever you report almost $1 billion
in
that you lost,
Yeah.
they give you a little bit of a break.
So, and his current debt that he has been given. So when he goes out asking for loans from different people, it's from Russia. His campaign finance official, his top campaign finance official, is a former pro-Russian Ukrainian finance minister. So before the Ukrainian government got toppled, I believe 2 years ago, the man in charge of the finance minister is now running the campaign finances for Trump.
You know this guy's name, Dave?
Not off the top of my head. Forgive me on that. I will throw that in the comments section later. But that is definitely the same guy. And he says, I'm not Putin's best friend.
By the way, how is he in America? Didn't he not be in America?
It's tricky. It's all business, man. It's all about money.
I bet.
He's put out a tweet, I'm going to be in Russia for, the Miss Universe pageant or whatever it was. And,
Was he in
it's
Russia?
like, I wonder if Putin will be my best friend. He and his daughter, Ivanka.
I was going to say, I wonder if he was in Russia when his daughter was there too. Maybe they met up.
They were actually in England, but it was Putin's girlfriend hanging out with Ivanka. Yeah, they don't know each other. Right, you believe that. So I'm going to go into another thing. Women need to be punished for abortions. He's on record in a freaking town hall saying that.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like,
That was from the summer.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, right?
Still in the primaries.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of the summer or maybe even May. You can't punish women for getting an abortion. It's the law of the land. Come on. Like, what is this? The 60s? Oh, no. Trying to reconnect. Damn it, Ted.
All right, so we're still on the YouTube.
All right, sorry, guys.
I think we lost it for a little bit, but we're back.
Yeah, we're back. My dad called, so Rosa, can you call my dad and tell him not to call into the show? I'm using my phone. Thank you. So going back, women need to be punished for abortions, and you know how he feels about other women. Let's go into his history of discriminatory acts in relation to not giving housing to African Americans and underprivileged populations.
This goes back to the 70s, I believe.
70s,
right, David?
yep.
Yeah.
His father was in a meeting with his top lawyer about what to do in terms of, should we offer housing to these people or not these people. So I'm just like, wow, how can you refer to these people as these people, in the racist term that it was, and denied housing to them. And the the Justice Department of New York actually brought charges against him. Why does everyone hate the blacks? I love you, Anthony. They brought charges against him and said you can't do this anymore. And then 3 years later, they found out he's still doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the guy's a scumbag. In terms of he
Not
really is racist.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention all the small business owners all over New Jersey, and specifically Atlantic City, that he ripped off to build his properties that had to accept a much smaller amount than they initially agreed upon. That's not even good business practices. That's how you ruin relationships.
Yep.
Like, that's,
Yeah. He wouldn't pay contractors, employees, etc. He told him to sue him. Which brings up, he's involved in 3,500 different litigation and trials, active litigation, right now, currently, as we're speaking. And that man's going to be in the Oval Office. He can easily just manipulate certain things and, write off stuff and pardon himself and this, that, and the other thing. So, yeah, the guy's a con in terms of his business dealings. And he's not really that great of a business person. Got $200 million from Daddy. If I had $2 million of inheritance from my father, I guarantee you I wouldn't be doing this show right now.
No.
We'd have
or we would have a much cooler background.
Yeah. We'd have.
But I mean, bro, he also got more than one loan from his dad. He also got bailed out a couple times. He declared bankruptcy twice, I believe, right?
6 times.
6 times.
6 times
Ooh,
bankruptcy.
okay.
And that's just his own personal businesses, casinos included.
Yeah.
But that's not including all the bankruptcies he's actually declared for himself. In terms of he may have been invested into or may have gotten funding from other people to do a business venture, declared bankruptcy, walked away scot-free, and was like, nope, that's good business. So I don't know about you, but going out of business is good business. I don't know.
Definitely not. That's a lot of cons, though, bro. I think we can keep going.
And so, using campaign donations to buy the art of the deal, so it can inflate his numbers, which his ghostwriter has come out and actually to disavow the book and say it was BS and, forgive the pun, trumped up. But in terms of, he increased the rent that he was charging his campaign. He was charging space for in his Trump plazas and Trump hotels and this, that, and the other thing. In the primaries, there was a baseline, and now it's 4 times that rate for the general election.
Supply and demand, baby.
And he's using campaign donations to pay for that and put that back into his pocket. You buy your book to give out to the entire Republican National Committee and convention just so that people can get to know you. That's BS. I'm calling BS. That's maybe a good business tactic. However,
well, Dave, that's how you become a New York Times bestseller. You just, you
BS it.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of his more risque comments. Attacking the Gold Star family, the cons, that was crap. Hates Muslims, wants to ban all Muslims, until our leaders can figure out what's going on. I'm sorry, but the vetting process to get into the United States by any refugee is harder than any other country except for Russia and China.
Not to mention, bro, who do you think is getting to America as a refugee from Syria? Probably someone with money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, not even a tenth.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's a bunch of people that, say, oh, if 3 Skittles were bad or something like that, would you eat the Yeah, fuck yeah. If it could get more people to save more people, I'd eat a goddamn bad Skittle.
Actually, it probably wouldn't even kill you, though.
Yeah, to be honest. Mexicans are rapists. That was in the first speech that he ever gave when he opened up. And you know what? Even barring all that, his John McCain comments really haven't sat well with me. I like my soldiers who don't get caught.
And he's supposed to be all for the veterans, and he's supposed to be all pro-war, and
that really kills me. And his whole political career started off as the birther movement, questioning Obama's whether he was born here or not. That has racial undertones. I don't care who you are. You're lying to yourself if you don't think it's racist. I didn't see him asking for Hillary Clinton's birth certificate, or Bill Clinton's birth certificate, or George W. Bush's birth certificate, or John McCain's birth certificate, or anybody's birth certificate other than Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wanted because then Obama put his long form out, then he wanted his college transcripts. Come on, man. Come on. There's just too much of that. And then, for lack of the better phrasing, because that's how he said, grab him by the pussy. There's now 12 different people that are out there with allegations. And whether you think, oh, they're only getting their 15 minutes of fame. No one ever, in the history of ever, got their start from this type of thing. No one in 20 years from now is going to go, oh, you remember that singer, that Ashley or Jane or whoever? You know what really started her career?
She got all that money from that law case.
Yeah, and calling out Trump for being a racist.
Yep.
Yeah, that has never occurred ever in the history. I'm sorry, if you can prove me wrong, please do. I would fully 100% say I'm incorrect and you're 100% correct. But at the same time, it's like why would these women lie? Maybe 1 or 2,
Mm-hmm.
3, 4 out of the 12, maybe. They do. Maybe they want their 10 minutes.
Well,
of fame,
Dave, you know what they
but
say
not
about smoke.
12.
Yeah, you know what they say about smoke.
There's definitely fire. Yeah. Especially when he's on tape saying some of the things that he said.
I mean, he's not lending himself a lot of room for error when it comes to these types of situations.
All right, so I know we just ripped on him a bit, so let's get into some positives. He's an outsider, so he's not politically beholden to others.
Mm-hmm.
He said he was going to finance his own campaign, but he went back and reneged on that. So I'm a little wary about his other promises. He wants to hold execs accountable for outsourcing jobs when he himself has outsourced jobs, so I don't know how much I believe about that. He wants to put tariffs in for businesses and different things like that, different industries, where he wants to protect our businesses. But tariffs never work. It actually caused numerous recessions back, in the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s. Actually, tariffs on foreign steel is probably one of the big things why the Great Depression actually occurred. And we can have debates about the semantics and different things like that. But he's a strong foreign policy. He wants to renegotiate trade deals, and he wants to embolden our allies like South Korea.
Is it strong though, Dave? Because actually, if you go on his website and you look at his trade section, it's literally just, we will appoint strong and fair enforcers to renegotiate our trade deals. That's, I believe, point number 2 on his 7-point plan. Right?
You know what,
So I think I could use a little more probably depth, right? Instead of just strong and
Substance.
fair.
Yeah.
His whole website is
We're gonna be
basically a
winning.
bunch of bullets.
We're going to be winning.
Yeah.
We're going to be winning.
The whole website's a bunch of
we're gonna
bullet
be-
points.
We're going to be winning immensely. Big league.
Big league.
Big league. All right. He's very business friendly though, and I'm giving the pros. You know,
Sure.
as a candidate and how people like respond to him. He's running on a populist campaign. He says he wants to help the American worker and put them first and different things like that. So the proof would be in the pudding. Like from his prior actions, I don't believe it, but that's for you guys to decide and for you guys to make the decision when you pull the lever. He's super business friendly, obviously. He's business background, and that's why I think a lot of people want him in because he puts himself as this
Something
big
new
business,
too,
yeah,
right? It's someone who's not the politician who's been in the system for 30 years,
exactly.
right? It's someone who doesn't have, who maybe has their own shady personal history, but doesn't have a history of connections to
Taking legal bribery, basically.
Yeah.
Citizens United, dark money, and different things on that aspect. And we're gonna rip Hillary Clinton a new one too. So don't go anywhere. Don't think that I'm just ripping Trump to shreds. Everybody says that there's 2 bad candidates in this or we got to pick between the lesser two. No, there's 5 bad candidates in this fucking election. Excuse my French, but there's 5 bad candidates in this election.
No one really jumps out and gives you something that you really feel very strongly for.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too many people out there that can look at any candidate's entire body of work and say, I feel good about this.
Yeah.
This is my guy.
Every time you push that button to go or pull the lever, you go, ugh, I got a little throat in the back of my mouth. I should feel terrible about this. But the last thing I'll say about Trump is, where did I put the little guy? His cyber plan, I don't understand it. He wants to be tougher with the cyber. I don't know if that's cyber warfare, cybersecurity, what have you.
He keeps saying the cyber, and you can look on his website too. If you go to cybersecurity, he calls it the Cyber Review. It's worded really poorly. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, I don't have the biggest digital background, but when it comes to understanding like things like the DDoS attack that happened last week when a bunch of websites went down across the internet, I have a little bit of knowledge, and it's just bullet points on a website. So I don't know if he has a 10-year-old son that's really good at computers, but he should probably start taking some classes too.
Fair enough. So I believe that he's a lot of talk without much substance, but that's for you guys to decide. And
I wonder how much of him is him actually not even sure how he made it this far.
Yeah.
I know that.
You know what? I'll give him credit there, though. He's the first social media candidate.
Yep.
And, he really used it. Bernie Sanders used it to his advantage as well, but I think Trump, giving the following that he had...
any one of his tweets gets retweeted at least, 10 to 20,000 times.
So
no matter what.
he's winning in that regard. He's very crafty in that, and he's made a very good run with that as his main go.
Although he hasn't done very well digitally, even though he started on social media, his team definitely had a lot of room for improvements in terms of spending, in terms of targeting people and running different things. You want to look at the candidate who executed the best, probably Bernie. Because he had a bunch of people like me, a bunch of little PPC and SEO guys on the internet running
doing
shit.
work.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to Clinton. We're going to start off with her cons, and then we'll finish up with her pros.
Let's probably start off with the biggest news, right?
Okay, so the emails are going to be reinvestigated due to Umar Abedin and her former ex-husband or estranged husband, Anthony Weiner, who Anthony Weiner was caught sexting or emailing in lewd pictures to, I believe, a 16-year-old girl or 15-year-old girl, which, the guy's disgusting. And, Umar Abedin stayed together with him either because it was politically expedient or because she really cared about her daughter and wanted her daughter's, family unit to stay together. But apparently there was some emails of interest that came up in that investigation that, the FBI Director Comey is now going to listen to or, reopen the investigation where, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's going to come up to anything. And you can sacrifice me. You can throw a whole bunch of hate at me through the comments or whatever. But in all honesty, I don't really think anything politically damaging is going to come out of this reopening, or not reopening, but just looking at it again. Basically,
this is what, the third time they're looking into it?
Second. So the earlier, as most people know, as FBI Director Comey said, there wasn't much to, go on. There wasn't enough to charge her on. You guys can debate the merits of that. I'm not going to get into that with the private server. I don't believe that she should have done it, but I don't think that she was criminally negligent in the aspect that even if they did bring charges against her, the actual letter of the law says that there would be no jail sentence and no fine for what she had actually done. So even if they did find that the emails were mishandled or whatever, there's no.
So what exactly are they?
There's
trying,
no punishment.
So let's not spend too much time on this because we definitely want to hit a bunch of other stuff too. But what are they trying to get out of it then? If the actual sentencing wouldn't actually send her to jail, all these send Hillary to jail signs I'm seeing.
In my personal opinion, it's politically motivated. She wouldn't go to jail. She wouldn't be in prison. Like she didn't actually commit any.
Just to tarnish her reputation.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And and that's why I hate her. Like I don't like her as a candidate because she's got so much political baggage. And whether you believe that these types of George W. Bush and Cheney also had huge amounts of emails that actually upwards of hundreds of thousands deleted that were never brought up.
So shout out to Rebecca for that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I get that, and I'm not defending her for using the private email server. I think that was pretty shitty. But Colin Powell did it. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice did it. A bunch of other people did it. So it is what it is. It doesn't make it right, no. But should it be the worst thing in the world? No. And I'm going to go into really policy-based things why I disagree with Hillary Clinton. And you can be the judge of that.
So let's do that, yeah.
So let's go into some policy things. Syria, she wants to put a no-fly zone in Syria and threaten Russia. Yeah, that's going to go over real well. I get it. Like, you have to be tough with them and bring them to the table and really force them and keep our issues at the forefront in that country. Hate her decision in Libya. She was complacent in going and toppling Muammar Gaddafi, and now look what that happened. Now we're bombing there all the time.
She's a war hawk.
Yeah, she's a complete war hawk.
She wants to go in with the guns and the tanks, take everything over.
And that's why she's complacent with the military-industrial complex. She's complacent with big money, and that's what it is. That's why I hate her the most. The Iraq war vote. She believes in free trade, not fair trade. And everyone brings it up like NAFTA was under her husband, but she supported it. She came out and defended it as the first lady. And like at the time, she wasn't a senator. She wasn't this. She wasn't that. But she did support it, and that's the thing. She's for TTIP, which is the transatlantic with Europe and our partners over there, the United Kingdom, for free trade amongst us.
Sure.
Which
probably similar to NAFTA and how it works, right?
Yeah, and similar to TPP. She was for it. Now she's against it. I think she's only against it because Obama's going to try to get it through in the lame duck Congress session with an up-down vote, which basically means that everybody who's there just says, yay or nay, oh, I'm for it. And nobody goes on record actually having voted for it.
She probably changed her mind for it because it's also a really hot subject right now.
It's politically expedient. Yeah. That's why I don't believe her. Took billions of dollars during her entire career for political gain, top donors, and I'll list a few. J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, DLA Piper International.
She was getting somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 per speech that she would give to these people when you can listen to these speeches now, right?
And actually, there's the transcripts out, and they're actually not that bad. I read through them. There's a few things that are damning. The public front where, honestly, it's taken out of context. Yeah, you have a public position, and then you try to fucking, negotiate with people in private. You can't have the entire thing out in the open, because Abraham Lincoln is a big example. He would say one thing to the general public and say one thing to another senator, another thing to another senator, and about Reconstruction and different things like that. And he was a great president. You got to play the politics. And I can't really knock her for that. I don't really enjoy with some of the things that she said in her speeches, but it is what it is. She's supported by DLA Piper International, which was the law firm that the rich guys tried to hire to get Mark Zuckerberg to pay for Facebook, and then Mark Zuckerberg sued him back. It's an international law firm. Scaldin Arps et al. They're not for the little guy either. That's another law firm that gives her oodles and oodles of cash. Here's a big one. It's coming up in the news. Time Warner's a huge donor to her.
Yep, so, and they also contribute to CNN, which is,
And
A
the
lot
whole
of people
thing
call it the
is,
Clinton News Network.
yeah, and the whole thing is, she's gonna let AT&T buy them.
Yep.
You know, if that gets stalled until the next president, her Justice Department's gonna go, boop, okay.
Well, they need to get the Supreme Court worked out too, because there's only 8 of them right now, right?
Yep, and we'll get into that as well. Some more cons: the Bring 'em to Heel super predators with the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, where she basically said, you know, we gotta lock up black guys,
Yep.
and you know, we need to lock up minorities, especially you know, Hispanics and African Americans are disproportionately hit by that law. You know, and that's why we have, you know, basically, you know, slavery is not abolished in this country. If you actually read the 13th Amendment, that if you go to jail, you actually can be considered a slave. You actually work against your will, and you can actually not make any wages.
Interesting.
Yeah, so look at that
And
up.
Dave, they actually just recently, sorry to cut you off, they just recently changed the fact that is it all the prisons are no longer?
Federal level. Federal
Okay.
private prisons will now no longer be funded, and in the next time that their contracts come up, they won't be renewed.
Cool.
If you get a chance, check out the Netflix documentary 13th. It actually goes into detail about the prison population and also what that actual means. You know, that slavery in this country is just a new form of it. You know, just keep the African American population
Well,
down.
and then, you know, it also comes from the fact that most of the nonviolent crimes are from marijuana. Why is marijuana still a scheduled
The war on
drug?
drugs.
Yeah, the war on drugs.
It was politically expedient for Richard Nixon and his cronies to push that through, and then Reagan pushed it
Get rid
through
of the
again.
blacks and the hippies, yeah.
Exactly. Another thing I wanted to bring up, Donna Brazile, who's now the DNC chairwoman, passed along questions to the Hillary Clinton camp about, you know, for that town hall that they had. And, you know, that's scummy. And when these people, like, get asked
Is that the one
about
when
it.
Ken Bone was hanging out?
Yeah, Ken Bone. And Ken Bone we trust. You know, she was asked by Jordan Cheriton of the Young Turks, TYT Politics, check it out, it's on YouTube, you know, 3 times. Are you badgering me? Are you sexist? And he's like, no, I'm just asking, like, what these emails said. In the emails, it implicates you as passing these questions, like, oh, well, those were ill-begotten and blah, blah, blah. I don't care how they were gotten. You know, like, you have to answer for this stuff. You need to answer these questions. We're going to move along to our pros now. Just to get through, we have about 5 more minutes to do.
Trying to wrap this up so everyone can watch the Eagles game. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Bird gang. Hashtag. She did very good work as First Lady for CHIP, Healthcare for Children.
Does great work for children. Has a great record when it comes to children and families. That's one thing that she can definitely hang her hat on.
She's a proponent for minimum wage to be increased. She was $12, and then Bernie got her up to $15 an hour, which I'm going to call BS. You know, I don't think she's going to really push for that hard. It's in the platform, and I honestly, if you look at Seattle and many other states and many other, you know, cities around the country who've raised their minimum wage, their economies are booming.
Yeah.
More money to go around for the little guy rather than just for the
increase
top.
your consumer spend. Yeah,
Bingo.
Absolutely.
Henry Ford gave his people, his employees, living wages so that they can go out and buy.
So they
his
can
cars.
buy. Yes, if your employees can't buy your own product, how can they be advocates of your brand?
Exactly.
Yes, of course.
She's a proponent for paid family leave.
Mhm.
You know, after you have a child for both man and woman. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, dude,
we're the only industrialized nation in the world that doesn't have that.
Paternity leave is especially bad in America.
Yep.
Not to discredit maternity leave and how important that is, but paternity leave is also very important.
Yeah, I'd like to spend time.
I'd like to
with
hang
my
out with them.
newborn
Yeah,
child.
yeah.
You know what I
I've
mean?
got some friends that have some kids on the way. You know, I'm sure they
Yeah.
care. I'm sure they want to spend time with them.
She has a college affordability plan that I'm not really the biggest fan of. She wants to make public education free, and I think that's wholeheartedly. You know, you reinvest into your people. You can debate the merits about that, but I think when we started public education in this country way back when, you know, that put us at the forefront. We were the most highly trained, the most skilled, we were the most educated, highly educated country in the world, and now we're slipping. We're definitely not at the top anymore. I also believe that you should have VOTEC and, you know, trade schools that for free. You know, we need carpenters, we need plumbers, we need these people out there too.
We need manufacturing.
Yeah, we need to,
not just service industry.
Exactly.
Also, her website, you can put it in Spanish with one click of a button.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get the Hispanic vote, Jill Stein's website doesn't have it. Trump's website doesn't have it. And Johnson's website doesn't have it. So, by process of, can I fucking read it?
Yeah. Boom.
That's a pretty big one.
Can I? Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, you know, and that's why that's her strategy. You know, Trump's winning. The only demographic he's winning is uneducated
White dudes.
white guys,
Yeah.
non-college educated white guys.
I would
So-
actually pose this question. I have not. I've actually seen way more women Trump supporters than I've ever thought were out there recently. I'll definitely say a lot of credit to
God
that.
bless you.
But I'll still say this: I've never met a black Trump supporter. I've never met a Hispanic
He
Trump
was
supporter.
Earlier in this election, he was polling at 1%. That's
Yeah.
within the margin of error of
Yeah.
not actually having
And
any
again,
supporters.
if your pitch is what have you got to lose? I'm sorry, but I'm not.
I'm
It's
not-
not a great pitch.
Yeah. So she wants to tax higher taxes on people earning more than 251,000 higher, and then subsequently more on millionaires. I think a progressive tax is what's needed in this country. You know, like everyone hates taxes, but you know, it used to be honorable in this country to pay your taxes and
Yeah,
have your
should
civic
be.
duty to.
You have to get rid of that connotation.
Yeah, you
Unfortunately.
know, like just like everyone's about for themselves. They're all about ideology. You know, like it's me, individualism. Oh, me. I get it. Like, but I'm also going to be in that bracket where I'm gonna make $250,000 when I'm out of school with a PhD in industry, if that's the route that I go. You know, I'm gonna be making that. So I feel that, you know what, if I can help another kid or public education build more roads, build more infrastructure, to increase the economy, the economic output of this country, to bring us to the 21st century in terms of our electrical grid, to get Wi-Fi every place, you know, to get band.
Or even better, just do the whole Google Fiber thing that's growing
Bingo.
now. No?
Bingo.
No, man, that's what it should be about. It should be about caring about your neighbors and caring about other people. And if you can help someone out, pass it forward, because you never know when it's going to come back, right?
Exactly. And, you know, everybody wants to privatize everything, but that's not going to be the solution. Like, look at charter schools. They want to gouge everybody for everything they got. In her first 100 days, she wants to propose an amendment against Citizens United. I don't know. You know, she talks about dark money, but not necessarily legalized bribery that we had before Citizens United. So I'm not really the biggest fan of her on that position. But, you know, I put that in the pros kind of column. I think she'll work across the aisle and get some stuff done. But if, you know,
I'll
see the
she's got a
political
lot of enemies.
she's got a lot of enemies, and I don't know if that's, you know, look at Obama. You know, he can't get anything done because of the stranglehold that Congress has. Even when he had the Democrats, he was, you know, a little too tail in between his legs, in my opinion. I don't think he showed exemplary leadership at the beginning. Supreme Court nominees, that's another pro for her in terms of, you know, putting up people that are actually going to put progressive ideals
Yeah,
out.
she actually wants to, you know, move past Roe v. Wade and start talking about new issues instead of trying to dig up shit.
Yeah, bringing us back to the 60s. I love the Mad Men. She has a multiple prong energy strategy, so she wants, you know, fracking and green energy investment in the whole
Although
nine
she did
yards.
get some heat at the beginning of her campaign for going against people who were in
Yeah.
the coal industry, and I think we all kind of know about that.
It's time to phase out coal. I'm sorry if you work for coal. It's terrible.
We also phased off of those really shitty cars back in, you know,
Yeah.
the Henry Ford time.
Remember when we had
Good
lead in our
progress.
gasoline?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't use lead in our gasoline anymore. Yeah. And then climate change. She's pro-science and pro-funding for the NIH, which I'm going to be funded through the NIH and cancer institutes and different things like that. But overall, you know, I'm going to be eating the turd sandwich this election cycle, so I'll throw that out there. You know, I'm inherently biased towards that. You know, Nate, you don't have to make your decision public at all, but, you know, I'm definitely going to be eating the turd sandwich. I hate to say it. You know, I was really pulling for Johnson to really, you know, come through, but, you know, he collapsed. And, you know, a lot of the ideals that are being thrown out there now are too ideological. And I believe that, you know, even with Adam, you know, we have good debates and we have rousing debates and we can compromise and we can come to, like, an agreement. You know, maybe my ideas aren't the best, but at the same time, when money in politics is the only thing that keeps us from having a good debate and actually to come together and to actually, you know, think, what can we do to solve this problem? Instead of like going, oh no, you're wrong, my donors tell me what to do. That's the issue that I have with, you know, today's political climate. We can't have a good debate. We can't have, you know, compromise in anybody's ideals anymore because, you know, politicians are beholden to big money. So I'm going to put a plug in there. Wolf Pack.
Woo!
WOLFPAC. The pack to end all packs. Wolfpack.com. I'm a member. I've already donated. You know, their sole objective is to get a constitutional amendment against Citizens United, to get dark money out of politics, and for public campaign finance reform. And I've never been more staunch of a supporter of anything in my entire life other than this particular organization, Wolfpack, wolfpack.com.
Posting the link right now.
Please go check them out. If we can get, they have 5 states that have continuing resolutions for constitutional amendment for a state-based constitutional party, basically where you have a constitutional convention to put forward this idea and to put forward this amendment, and to get money out of politics, to have it publicly financed, so that we can have debates about the issues that aren't beholden to big money, that aren't beholden to these people that are in back alleys, the back rooms, and that you can't get cameras there, and all the lobbying. We need to get rid of that, and to get rid of that,
And keep the press in the news conference and not kick the media out.
exactly.
As much as people like to hate on the media, you can't kick journalists out of press events.
Bingo. And that's my shtick. If to get to a place where we want to actually have a rousing debate, to have a debate about the issues. If you disagree with me, that's fine. I'm all about people being principled and having a good debate. Excuse me. But at the same time, if we can't even have that debate, that's where the problem lies. And that's where I'll leave it at. Wolfpack.com. Check them out. And if you're really big into the news, check out the Young Turks on YouTube. I'll give them a little plug. I know I'm a big fan. And may the force be with you all. Happy voting.
All right, take it easy, guys.
See you
Thanks
next
for the
week,
time.
guys.
Nice.
That was solid.
That was awesome.
Still